Hi, I'm Jackie Flynn. I'm the host of Play Therapy Community Podcast, and I'm also a registered play therapist. And I'm so excited to be here with Lisa Dion.
Thanks, Jackie. So I'm Lisa Dion. I am the creator of Synergetic Play Therapy and the president of the Synergetic Play Therapy Institute and the host of the Lessons from the Playroom podcast series. And Jackie and I have come together to create what we hope is going to be a really powerful resource for you right now. Right now, we're in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic, and we are hearing and witnessing and experiencing just a lot of fatigue, a lot of stress from therapists all over the world, because let's be honest, we're actually on the front line. And we wanted to come together and create something that would offer different tips and ways to support you right now so that you can continue to do what you need to do, because you're helping so many. And sometimes in a crisis, our own self-care and our own ability to regulate our own nervous systems goes out the window, or maybe we just don't fully know how. So we're hoping to give some ideas to help you through this really challenging time.
Yes, and our hope is that you revisit this video, you come back time and time again to just refresh your knowledge, to try out these techniques and really apply them in your work to not only help you and help improve your quality of life, but help those that you help. All right, let's just jump right in.
Let's do this.
Studying the effects of accumulated stress on the nervous system, I began to suspect that most organisms have an innate capacity to rebound from threatening and stressful events. That's a quote from Peter Levine. Return to this training again and again to strengthen your body's capacity to effectively regulate. Making this a practice over time can raise your quality of life and support your capacity to deeply help others. In this training, you'll learn about the window of tolerance, regulation, emotional flooding, breathing techniques, exhaustion and fatigue, body scan and somatic associations, fatigue and teletherapy, and that work-home balance. First, we're going to start with understanding the window of tolerance. The way that we can conceptualize this is as a zone of arousal in which we're able to function most effectively. It's that optimal state, and in this image, it's shown as that green space. When we're in our window of tolerance, we're just able to function better. Lisa describes the areas outside of our window of tolerance as just too much. When we're in our window of tolerance, we're just able to take in and process and integrate that information in our lives. Now, outside of our window of tolerance lies hyper-arousal and hypo-arousal. Hyper-arousal is shown in that red space in this image, and it refers to that overactivation, and hypo-arousal is that blue space, and it refers to that kind of disconnected, that shut down, being underactivated. In this training, we're going to talk about how to use breath work and movements and touch and just some really simple ways to connect and pull ourselves back into the window of tolerance, and how we can just connect and regulate. You could see in these images, the window of tolerance can move around. This first one is what it looks like when we are in that hypo-aroused state, when we have more of that, we'll call it the blue zone, just very disconnected and underactivated. In that green zone, the window of tolerance is very slim. And then on the other side, the hyper-aroused, that's when we have a lot of overactivation and we feel overstimulated. So let's just jump right in and see what we can do to move back into our window of tolerance. Now we're going to look at the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is a space. It's a space in between being over-aroused, which we call hyper-aroused, and under-aroused, hypo-aroused. It's that space that optimal functioning lies. It's the space where we can be at our most effective self, our most present self, at our self that feels connected and ready to take on the world. And I think it's really important to realize that it is not something that is static, that stays the same throughout the day, throughout even a session. We may go in and out of our window of tolerance. So what we're going to look at are some ways to either pull ourselves down from hyper arousal when we're feeling overactivated, or up from that hypo arousal when we're feeling that disconnected, that dissociated. We may feel kind of just shut down, which can happen to us as therapists.
Absolutely. And I think even normalizing for everyone right now, while we're in this crisis, we really are fluctuating between hyperarousal and hypoarousal, and it's really normal. And we really want to equip you to be able to have some tools, because it's important that we're able to come back to ourselves as the stress intensifies, because we know that we're in an ongoing crisis situation, naturally affected by this. So being able to recognize, what is my window of tolerance in any given moment? When am I outside my window of tolerance? What do I need to do to help myself get back into my window of tolerance, is really the thing that's going to pull us through to keep and preserve our own mental health, and to help us stay connected so that we can continue to serve people right now.
These images are showing dysregulation, angry, sad, overwhelm, exhaustion. You may be able to relate with some of these feelings of dysregulation. I love how when Lisa talks about regulation, she uses the word connection. So we're going to look at how to connect with ourselves, how to connect with nature, how to connect with others, to really help bring ourselves back in to that window of tolerance and regulate.
Okay, everyone, so let's start with what is regulation. If we're talking about how do we come back into our window of tolerance, we're really talking about how do we regulate? How do we regulate the intensity that we're experiencing in our body? And I want you to understand that regulation really means connected. Many people tend to think that it means calm, and that's not actually what regulation means. Regulation means a moment of mindful awareness, a moment when we're connected with ourselves in the midst of whatever it is that we are experiencing. And this is really important for us right now, because if right now we have an expectation to just stay calm, right? Just stay calm, Jackie, right? We're just going to stay calm right now. Well, we're activated because we're naturally perceiving threats and challenges in our environment right now. So we don't want to set ourselves up for yet another thing that we feel like we can't be successful with right now, or add pressure onto ourselves. So when we talk about regulation, I want you to really think about, what can you do right now to stay connected? Not calm, but to stay connected. And we're going to go through many different ways to support you in doing this, but it's really the act of being connected with ourselves in the midst of the activation that allows us to access our vagus nerve, which we'll talk more about, which gives us access into our prefrontal cortex and gives us access to the ability for our body to be able to begin to relax, so we can manage the intensity that we're experiencing in our bodies. But I think that's such a key piece, is the work here is, how do I stay connected rather than just trying to be calm? I like to think about regulation as, in a moment when I am regulating or I'm connecting with myself, I feel bigger than the intensity in my body, versus whatever I'm experiencing feeling bigger than me, where I become lost in it. Like, I'm still in it. I can still feel myself. I can be grounded in the midst of being sad. I can be grounded in the midst of being anxious or mad or overwhelmed. I can have both states occurring in me simultaneously. And that really is, that's what we're up to right now to help us manage through the intensity through this crisis.
Now we're going to look at emotional flooding, understanding the neuroscience of it, recognizing the physiological effects, what happens in our body, and how to get back online.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about emotionally flooded, which really means we're outside of our window of tolerance, as you talked about, where our capacity in the moment, we're outside of that capacity. When we have an experience of emotionally flooded, it's really the experience of too much. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much information. It's too much input. It's too much, my time drained. It's too much. The intensity is too much. It's too much. And when we start to emotionally flood, it starts to look one of two ways. So normal activation in our nervous system when we start to take a challenge on would be to rev up in a fight or flight response, which for many people right now, they're experiencing it. It's the anxiety, it's the panic. It can even go into the irritability, even the aggression, that. And then it goes the other way, which is around beginning to shut down and going into more of a collapse withdrawal. You start to feel a little depressed, a little numbed out. And those are experiences, but we're not necessarily fully emotionally flooded quite yet. It can be, but emotional flooding, when we have the experience of too much, is that at a really large scale. So it's not just a little bit of panic, it's panic. It's panic, right? It's not just a little bit of irritability. Like you're at the point where you're screaming, you've lost control of yourself. You're like, you're almost in a rage, or you're so anxious that you're not sleeping. You're nauseous. You're ruminating. Mm-hmm. We're emotionally flooded. Or the flip side with the collapse is we really are struggling to get out of bed. We really have numbed out, like really cannot feel much. The feeling of just not wanting to interact, like really withdrawing from people, starting to self-isolate or wanting to self-isolate. Even just the curled up in fetal position, uncontrollable crying, and not being able to pull yourself out of it. So we're talking about dysregulation, but at an extreme level. Mm-hmm. And Jackie, I'm hearing therapists all over the world that this is where many are at.
Yes.
Right now, that we're not talking about just dysregulation, we're talking about emotional flooding. Yes. And so what I want people to understand is that it is normal and there's things that we can do about it. Mm-hmm. So when we start to find ourselves in a place of emotional flooding, there's really only one task at hand. I'm going to make it really simple. It's back to the basics. It's really simple. There's a lot of strategies on, okay, start doing this self-care activity or this or whatever. Let's just make it really simple. Mm-hmm. Create safety. Back to the basics. Back to 3 meals a day. Back to try to get on a good sleep schedule. Back to make sure that you're trying to get in a little bit of movement every day. Back to the basics. Mm-hmm. Really create safety in your inner world and in your environment. It's so needed when we feel that emotionally flooded. And then beyond that, 2 things that I'm going to highly recommend. One is whatever you can do to just ground your body. So really focusing on your body. Mm-hmm. So whether it's just taking the time to really feel your feet in the ground, or I mentioned in an earlier clip, one of the things I touched was a weighted blanket. This is a weighted blanket. This is beautiful for emotional flooding because when you put it on you, it's a 15-pound blanket. It organizes you. It holds you. It creates pressure. It creates a sense of safety, in the body. So whatever you can do to ground in your body. And then the last one, which may be a new thought for some people, is at the end of your showers, turn the last bit of your shower on as cold as you can tolerate it. And then take deep breaths while you're in that last minute of your shower.
Mhm.
It's huge, right? It's huge. So little things that we can do to just begin to organize our systems, but really it's back to the basics. Just create safety.
Just giving your body what it needs, and it sounds like little tweaks. You use the word organized, and it makes me think of, we had a hedgehog one time, and it was just the cutest thing, but it got disorganized quite frequently. It was a little bit on the grumpy side. It fell out of its window of tolerance quite often, but the quills on it would just like, they go from lined up to like all, discombobulated. And I love how you kind of apply that to inside. It does feel chaotic, it feels disorganized, but even something like a weighted blanket, or taking a walk, or just really becoming present with our favorite tea and listening to the birds outside, that can make everything just like calm down. Let's take a look at some breathing techniques, some ways that we can use our breath to pull ourselves back into that window of tolerance. Now we're going to focus on some breath work options that you have. If you're feeling hyper aroused, you can take a deep breath through your nose, pause, and do an elongated out breath through your mouth. Pause. Let's do one more. Smell the flower. Pause. And blow out the candle. What are you noticing in your body, Lisa?
It's just a release.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just a really nice release. Yeah.
Like dials it down. Okay, suppose we're in that fatigue state and we're feeling disconnected, maybe a little distant, our mind may be wandering, we're definitely not in that moments of presence, that hypo aroused. So what we can do in the child therapy world, sometimes it's referred to as bunny sniffs, but we could also call it whatever we want, so we'll think of it as regulatory breathing. But we really just want to get all of that good oxygen up into our body quickly. So you know how like a bunny, when it's smelling something, is like that. Or when we cry. So when we cry, many of us have that sniffle and the longer exhale. So we're going to do that. We're going to do some bunny sniffs. So in through your nose, hold it, and a big long exhale through your mouth. Let's do another one. In through your nose and out through your mouth.
Jackie, is the difference between the two the emphasis? So like in the first one, was the emphasis on, just sort of breathing in however we were breathing in,
Yes.
But the emphasis really on extending the exhalation. And then in the second one, the emphasis actually on bringing the air in, even though we were still extending the exhalation. Is that the difference of just where we're putting the emphasis?
Yes, and it's very minor, but it's profound. It can really bring you to that state of alert or that state of calm.
And then I would imagine, if we're talking about getting into the window of tolerance, we're talking about, okay, noticing where am I? Am I hyper? Am I hypo? Maybe doing some different kinds of breathing that we're talking about here to either bring me down or bring me up. And then that once I'm in the window of tolerance, now do I move into maybe more regulated breathing? Because I would imagine I wouldn't need to keep doing that because I'm back into my window of tolerance.
Absolutely. And I think when we naturally just get stressed, or over time, we may get in the habit of kind of stopping right here in our chest. But when we can do the regulated breathing of just big, deep belly breaths, just and taking it down just as far as we can, that's when things just kind of, it feels good. It's kind of like you were talking about the exercise and the good nutrition and giving yourself time to just kind of pause. It's giving the body what it needs, which is the breath.
Breath, which we said is actually the fastest way back to connecting with ourselves. So this is a key one that I hope I hope you'll practice, that you'll really look at your breathing patterns and you'll really take into consideration that you actually can proactively do something with your breathing.
Let's look at exhaustion and fatigue when we feel our minds and our bodies just shutting down. Our body innately just knows some things, and when we can listen to it and kind of give it what it needs, then that's when we can get in that optimal state, the window of tolerance.
So, Jackie, is the difference between the two the emphasis? So like in the first one, was the emphasis on, just sort of breathing in however we were breathing in,
Yes.
but the emphasis really on extending the exhalation. And then in the second one, the emphasis actually on bringing the air in, even though we were still extending the exhalation. Is that the difference of just where we're putting the emphasis?
Yes, and it's very minor, but it's profound. It can really bring you to that state of alert or that state of calm. One thing that I noticed, especially with the first one, where we have that just a regular in through your nose, pause, and a big long exhale. If you look up and keep your head straight, but look up with your eyes, that seems to de-escalate it a little bit quicker, having those upward eye movement.
That's great. And then I would imagine, if we're talking about getting into the window of tolerance, we're talking about, okay, noticing where am I? Am I hyper? Am I hypo? Maybe doing some different kinds of breathing that we're talking about here to either bring me down or bring me up. And then that once I'm in the window of tolerance, now do I move into maybe more regulated breathing? Because I would imagine I wouldn't need to keep doing that because I'm back into my window of tolerance.
Absolutely. And I think when we naturally just get stressed or over time, we may get in the habit of kind of stopping right here in our chest. But when we can do the regulated breathing of just big, deep belly breaths, and taking it down just as far as we can, that's when things just kind of, it feels good. It's kind of like you were talking about the exercise and the good nutrition and giving yourself time to just kind of pause. It's giving the body what it needs, which is the breath.
Breath, which we said is actually the fastest way back to connecting with ourselves. So this is the key one that I hope you'll practice, that you'll really look at your breathing patterns and you'll really take into consideration that you actually can proactively do something with your breathing when you're dysregulated or when you're starting to feel the activation and bring yourself back into your window of tolerance.
And what's really cool is our breath is with us. So we don't need any equipment. We don't need any paperwork or anything. It's right there. We can do it in the moment wherever we're at.
That's great.
Let's look at exhaustion and fatigue when we feel our minds and our bodies just shutting down.
So many of us with the intensity are feeling exhausted, which we've already talked a little bit about emotional flooding, which is a sign of emotional flooding. But let's talk a little bit about really specific things you can do specifically for the exhaustion, since that's such a prevalent experience that so many people are having right now. So again, the exhaustion and the fatigue is really setting in because things just feel like they're too much, whatever that may be. So to understand more what's happening in the physiology, as the system is beginning to shut down and collapse, you can almost think of it as energy is also getting trapped inside. So we're shutting down, but the energy's got to go somewhere. So it really is getting trapped inside, if you want to conceptualize it that way. And so what we're really thinking about here is, how do I begin to mobilize again? How do I begin to gently bring energy back into my system and to wake my system up, particularly in the midst of the feeling of if it's too much? Practically speaking, being able to just look at where can you set boundaries, or what do you need to do, just practically speaking, to be able to support just the perception of too much. And we'll talk more about that when we get into the work-home balance. So we'll talk more about that. But outside of that, sometimes we just actually need to let the body rest. And as therapists, we're really great at being helpful. We're really good at being helpful. We're so good. And we're really great, actually, at going past our own limits.
Yes.
And because we want to be helpful, we have such big hearts. But sometimes we just need to let ourselves rest. So it's okay to go take a nap. It's okay to actually just go let yourself. Jackie, last week I was having a feeling of the overwhelm was setting in. I had a real profound sense of exhaustion in my body. And I came right into my office in this room and I turned the lights off. So I'm minimizing sensory input. I turned the lights off, I laid on the floor, and I put a weighted blanket completely over me. And I just literally blocked out all the sensory data and just let my body just rest.
Yes, it sounds like just a recharge. Just shut down all operations, give it a pause.
Exactly. And I only laid here for maybe 15 minutes. It wasn't like hours on end, but it was really intentional of let my body just come into a place where it can fully just surrender. So permission to rest, permission to find ways of just shutting it out.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Another big one, if you feel like you know, there's like almost that sense of trapped energy, or you want to mobilize, or at that point, beginning to bring in some movement is helpful. And it can even be movement that's just like, this isn't about stressing ourselves out more. It's like a gentle hello. It's a gentle waking the body up. It's a gentle connection back to self. It's like, you know, it's safe to feel again. It's safe to come back online again, which is different than like, I'm going to force myself. That's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And then another one, Jackie, that I want to share has to do with letting some of that energy then that's been held in begin to release. And it's letting your body actually shake. So I'm actually going to demonstrate this, okay? So for those of you that are watching, I actually want you to try this. And so, Jackie, I don't know if you want to do it with me, but...
I do.
Okay. All right. So hopefully everyone can see my body mostly. So your feet are firmly planted on the ground. You're not going to lift your feet up. You might want to bend your knees just a little bit. So again, you're rooted in the ground. Your knees are gently bent, and just let yourself shake. That's it. Just deep breaths, and you're just letting yourself shake. However that goes. Maybe your head wants to go. Maybe your arms want to go, and you just let your body just, like now my back wants to go. I can just feel it in my back. And just let your body just begin just to shake. And it's really a let go kind of a shake. It's just like release, 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 release. Really trust that the floor is able to support you, and just sort of releasing and letting go into the floor. It's an instinct.
That. I felt it. It felt like it was moving through my body. And I don't even know if I was doing it correctly. At first I was like, well, I kind of feel like I'm doing a really bad dance, but I felt the benefits.
It's an instinctual thing that animals do. So when we study trauma, and we study trauma release from the body, when the body becomes immobilized, it's like the body, or if the body freezes in some way, in like a hypervigilant response, the body needs to be able to mobilize, to be able to move that energy through. And because we're holding so much, we are storing a lot right now. And so finding those ways of letting your body, whether it's through a shake, whether it's through stretching, whether it's through gentle walks, but I just want you to hear the word gentle. When you're coming out of exhaustion, gentle. When you come back into your window of tolerance, well, then go for the run. Then do your, then if you really want to go for it. But don't force energy into a system that's already feeling fatigued. Let yourself gently come into relationship with the energy again. Does that make sense? Yeah, just like let yourself slowly wake up. Be kind to yourself in the process.
I kind of picture like, you know how like the speedometer slowly goes, well, ideally slowly goes up. If we hit the gas, it's like a shock to the system. It's going to jolt us, and then
What
we
a
may even feel
beautiful,
some
yeah,
pain.
that's a great analogy. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then one that I shared before, but it's great for this one, is the cold showers. And not only cold showers, but even just splashing cold water on the face, particularly from the chin up. So this way up, putting your hands actually in, in cold water.
Mm-hmm.
Different things like this, where you're actually rubbing your neck and you're
Oh,
stimulating the vagus nerve, which I had mentioned a little bit. Your vagus nerve is really the part of your nervous system that is the regulatory force in the nervous system. Some other ones, Jackie,
oh,
I'll
that
give
is
you the,
so good. I feel like the relaxation come just from having my hands there. That's the
yeah,
power of connecting with ourselves.
try this one too.
Okay.
You just,
Mm.
it's just grounding.
Yes, that's the word that comes to mind. Helps me feel like really kind of present.
It's just like in the exhaustion, there's that feeling of like I can be connected to myself,
Mhm.
can take a deep breath, I mean, isn't it interesting that so many of us, when we get exacerbated or feel exhausted, we naturally go, ah,
Ooh, the body instinctually knows what to do.
oh, really.
Oh, and
So,
that's something very just simple, just a little tweak. Put your hand on your head, put some
mm,
pressure, be very present
mm,
with it. And it just is like a big reset button.
yeah, maybe a cool washcloth,
Oh, ooh, that
doesn't
sounds refreshing too. When I think
it?
about
Yeah.
hypo arousal being kind of shut down, that cool washcloth, some pressure on your head, that rub to your vagus nerve. So good.
Um, Another one, essential oils for you essential oil people out there, but even just smelling it, eucalyptus or
Mhm.
some kind of a scent that is a bit energizing into the body and awakens the body can be really lovely.
We're going to learn how to do a body scan with the emotional release through somatic associations, really guiding ourselves through noticing any tightness or tension, any unusual sensations in our body, and exploring any connections, any images that may be associated, any thoughts, cognitions, or the emotions, and how to lean into that so that we can process through it. Lisa, I feel like it's really helpful to be aware of what's happening in the body, really guiding ourselves through a body scan just from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet, noticing any tight or tense, any unusual sensations, and just looking at any associations with those can help release some energy as well. I'm very inspired by Dr. Dan Siegel's work, and he talks about the sift, the sensations, the images, the feelings, and the thoughts that goes with those sensations in the body. We're going to do this one a little bit different because through the body scan, we're already identifying the sensations, but it kind of all builds on each other. So what I'd like you to do now, and for those of you watching, if you are at a place to where you can just kind of close your eyes, then you may want to do this with us. I'd like you to just, if you feel comfortable, gently close your eyes, and I want you to just become really present in your body. Just let your shoulders drop. Notice your breath. What I'd like you to do is from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, I just want you to slowly scan your body and notice anywhere in your body you may feel any tight, any tense, or any unusual sensations. And just let me know if you feel anything, even if it's a little twinge.
Yeah, Jackie, it's actually really profound. It's right at my heart. There's just a little bit of tension, just like a tug, right around my heart area. Yeah.
So I want you to notice that with your eyes staying closed and not judging it good or bad or right or wrong, just letting it be. And put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly button. And I want you to just lean in to that sensation in your heart. Allow yourself to feel it and be present with it as much as possible. And notice any associations, such as any images that may be connected to it, or any emotions, any thoughts.
Are you wanting me to share?
Sure, yes.
It's quite beautiful, and this was obviously not pre-planned in any way, but I went into my heart and I felt a wave of sadness, and the image that came to mind were all the therapists that are struggling right now, and just this real like peace in my heart of like wanting to offer a hug and a breath. I mean, it's so perfect for what we're doing and what we're creating right now, but just this message of like, it's okay. It's okay to feel like you're a mess. It's okay to be messy. It's okay to be dysregulated. And this like just profound feeling in my heart of wanting to hug and like even rock everybody. It's right there in my heart.
Just notice that, and I want you to just imagine that. Oh, feel that in your body.
Okay, those of you that are watching, I am so rocking you right now.
Oh, I feel it too. Now I want you to just kind of notice that sensation right there. And it may have shifted, or it may be in the same spot. Just kind of notice, did it decrease? Did it stay the same? Did it increase?
Just more present with it. Just a more sort of solid experience of it. Yeah.
So I'd like you to just take a big deep breath through your nose and breathe right into that spot. Imagine that nice fresh air going right into the spot in your heart, and then exhale through your mouth. When you feel ready, let me have you open up your eyes. What was that like?
Really, really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And, I'm aware that, as I'm feeling this outward towards everyone that we're hoping is watching this, it's also my own internal message to myself and rocking myself too. So that was just beautiful. It was just a sense of real deep, went from sadness to like this longing to like this feeling of connection and this feeling of, and we've all got each other. Like we can be in this together. And I can be connected to myself in that. It was really beautiful.
And I think that really speaks to the importance of leaning into these emotions, not trying to distract ourselves from them or try to say, nope, I just need to be calm. I need to be happy. I need to pretend like everything's okay. But leaning into it and processing through just something as simple as the body scan and noticing the associations can help you move through it and have that adaptive shift to where now it's in a different space. And I love the thought of rocking. I think of like a mother rocking her baby and what that feels like. And that's like our very beginnings.
That's what it felt like.
Fatigue and teletherapy. That therapeutic presence and the need for regulation.
Okay, so let's talk about teletherapy, because so many of us have had to switch platforms. We're used to being in the room with children on the floor, playing and moving and actually naturally regulating in some ways, to all of a sudden we are across from them on a screen. And even just the shift in moving to a new platform can be dysregulating. It can contribute to everything that we've been talking about so far. But one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of is, I'm so tired. Like I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. Why is teletherapy so draining? So let's flesh this out a little bit. yes, there are the pieces around you're staring at a screen, we know that there's impact of just looking at screens all day. I mean, there's those things, but I want to go a little bit deeper, which has to do with two things. One is most of us, when we are at the screen, are staying still. Our bodies aren't designed to stay still. And when we were on the floor with children, we could move, we could stretch. Heck, we were often like running across the room about to, take the dragon out, like where our bodies are naturally engaged. So in addition to just switching the platform, we need to be aware that the natural regulation has actually decreased. And so being able to look at that and go, okay, I still need to regulate my body. I mean, there's a reason why children have a hard time sitting still in school. And we're going, why are we having a hard time sitting still all day long staring at a computer? Well, same reasons why children struggle sitting still in school in many ways. The body isn't designed.
Aha moment. Yeah, I didn't even consider.
Bodies aren't designed to do that. We're not. So, so the first thing that I want to talk about here is it's important to actually regulate your body during the session itself. So like, I'll give you some examples. So as I am, Jackie, let's say that you're the child, right? And we're doing our teletherapy session and we're doing our activities. I could do this every once in a while. And if it was like, well, I don't know, if it looks weird, well, guess what? I'm squeezing my legs right now. And do you know that I'm squeezing my legs right now?
No, I feel like you're fully engaged with me. It feels like
I'm actually squeezing my legs up and down right now. Right? So if I didn't want to do it in your visual field, so right now I'm actually rubbing the bottom of my foot.
Yeah, can't tell it.
Know that I'm rubbing the bottom of my foot right now, but I'm connecting with my body and I'm pushing into my body so that I can stay connected to myself and regulate the energy as I am on the other side of the screen with you. Even things like, from here to here.
Yeah, movement.
Yeah, let your body move, switch positions. Yeah. But the difference is doing it, just doing it versus consciously doing it. So consciously attending to your body and regulating your body. I know I've talked about the weighted blanket like so many times throughout this, but I do. So right here it is again. I usually have a weighted blanket on my legs during my sessions because it grounds me. Yeah. I have my shoes off and I can rub my feet on the floor again to ground me. I have a glass with cold water in it that I can sip throughout a session, again, to regulate me and ground me. These are things that will go a long way towards mitigating the fatigue of just sitting and holding and just being in the emotionality of it. And again, not being able to have the release in the system.
Yes.
So proactively regulate your body. Proactively do it.
There's so many little tweaks that you can do, little things that you could do. One thing that I've been doing, not with all my clients, but I'll ask them what a song is that they like or maybe their favorite song. I'll pull it up on YouTube and we'll listen to it and have like a little dance party.
Totally, and great. And you're connecting to your body. Beautiful.
Yes. And if it's the song that they like, not everyone, that it certainly doesn't apply for everyone. So I love the idea of movement. I remember when I first moved into the teletherapy world with kids, one of the things I noticed was like if they had maybe a tablet with them, they were moving around the room, or if, it was a laptop or a desktop, they were going out of the field of the window to where I could see them. When I realized that actually that is helping them to move. You just let it happen organically, just as we would in the therapy office.
They just don't have all the messaging in their head that says, I should or I shouldn't move right now. But truth is we want to be moving around and shifting from sitting at the desk to sitting on the floor to, that's what our bodies would like to
Yes.
instinctually do also. So can we allow some of that? Because that'll work towards the fatigue. And then the other one, Jackie, which is actually the number one reason why we're experiencing the fatigue, is because the way that we have to attend with our attention is different. So when we're in a room with a client, it's our mind we can get away with our mind wandering.
Yeah.
We can.
We can
get away with our mind. We can be present, but it's a lot harder to get away with if you're on the screen and all of a sudden your mind wanders. It's a lot harder to get out of it, right? And so all of a sudden, and because we don't have all the nonverbals, we are attending in a different way. So the way that I've had therapists think about this is, okay, Jackie, do you remember when you first started doing therapy, how much effort it took to do your very first session? Like how much effort it took to try to stay present?
Oh yes. And I laid on the couch afterwards and I was like, wow.
And then
remember
then when all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, I have to see 3 in a row. And there was a learning curve specific to attention.
Yes.
So I'm going to propose that part of the fatigue is the learning curve as we're learning how to attend in a different way. That we're learning how to be mindful and present in a different way because it's requiring something different from us than when we were in the room with the child. So no wonder we're tired. And then if we think, I saw 4 kids in my office, well, I'm just going to transfer those to online and see 4 back to back.
Yeah. And it's more intense, way more intense.
It's way more intense because we haven't developed yet we're still in the process of developing and fine-tuning a different way to attend.
And I think, you said the word yet. I think it is an adjustment. And just as in the beginning, it was more difficult in the office, it can also get easier as we get more practice. I have to say, just at the time of this recording, I've been doing the online play therapy sessions for about 4 weeks. And I've definitely seen myself starting to adjust and to feel more comfortable with it, a little bit more energetic with it over the course of 4 weeks. So it seems right on target from actually what I'm experiencing in my work as well.
So regulate yourself more often and recognize that you're in presence training. That we're learning to attend and attune in a new way that's requiring us to access actually more of our body. More presence than maybe we need to when someone's just sitting across from us or when they're in the room and we can be moving together. It's a different way of showing up.
Take a look at that work-home balance.
So Jackie, I think it makes sense that the last piece is on the work-home balance because that's another big, I think, contributing factor to some of the dysregulation that we're all experiencing right now because there's such a big adjustment with it. So let's offer some different ideas on how to navigate the work-home balance. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is routine. And when I think of routine, I don't think of a rigid, at noon we're having lunch, not that kind of a routine, but that our routines have been thrown off. And routines actually create safety for us. So being able to, have a sense of predictability about how the day is going to go. And one of the things that I have found with a lot of families is that they're trying to create routine that the time horizon is actually a little too big. And what I mean by that is everything's changing week to week. And so if everything is changing from week to week, then it's really a question of, what's our routine for this week? And maybe what's our routine for today? Because tomorrow may be different, rather than what's our routine for the next month. We don't really know. But how can we get into a routine? How can we get into a little bit of a rhythm or a flow? and make it predictable, I think is really, really big right now. Making sure that the basic needs, right, are being met and attended to. Allowing ourselves to set boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, I said
like
on the last little clips that we're so good at being helpful. We're so good at taking care of everybody else. And oftentimes the therapist's own self is the last that gets taken care of. But it's actually really important. It's important that we set boundaries around our time and that we set boundaries to help us stay within our window of tolerance. Yeah. Because if we're not and we're outside of our window of tolerance, we can't be helpful anyway. So true. Right? Like, so we need to be able to give ourselves permission to say, I can't today, or in 1 hour, or actually, I know you need support right now, I'll do it tomorrow, not today, or whatever that may be. That's actually really great self-care. And then the last one
that makes me think of, Lisa, is like the oxygen mask metaphor. And I think that like totally fits in there. Like we need to put on our own oxygen mask before we do others, or else we're not going to have anything to give. So if we're depleted, what do we have to offer anyway? So I don't even think it's a luxury as much as it is a necessity to just kind of give ourselves what we need.
We're not going to be able to stay on the front line if we don't. And we know that the next wave is coming. Yeah. That right now, once things shift, we know that the next wave is going to be people's mental health and helping people process what they just experienced. And so we're on the front line already, and we're really going to be on the front line coming up. And so it's really important that we really practice self-care and we really work at a lot of the strategies that we're talking about in this in these different videos. It's really essential right now.
I think so too.
The last one that I want to share, and then I want to hear your ideas, because I know you've got some awesome ideas, is that it's really important that we give each other, when I say each other, ourselves and everyone in our family, permission every day to do something that we love. Whatever that may be. So it may be, that you want to go on a walk and that's just what you need. Or maybe someone wants to go sit alone in their room. They just genuinely want to be alone. Or maybe someone wants to do art, or someone needs more physical movement, or whatever it is. But if we don't recognize that whatever it is that really makes someone light up, if we're not actively incorporating that into our daily schedule right now, we're not going to feel fulfilled. Yeah. And we're not going to feel alive. And it goes a long way towards counterbalancing the stress response that we're experiencing, because we know that when we're engaged in something that we love, our window of tolerance is the widest. Yeah. It's where we have the capacity to actually adapt to stress the best. It's where we are able to be most regulated. And so if we're not incorporating that, it's yet another part of this puzzle that we're not addressing. It's important that we get to do what we love. Yes,
it raises the quality of life. What would that be for you? What's one thing that you love to do?
So two things. One is teaching. So even things like this brings so much energy into my system to be able to have conversations and teach, because I love to teach. And then the other one, which I had shared with you before we even started these, is, I go on multiple walks a day, and my daughter asks me if she can join me on my morning walk. And my answer is no. My morning walk is just for me, but she can join me on my other walks during the day. Yeah. But I need my own alone walk in the morning, just one. Yeah. That's my connection time.
And that's your boundary too. I love that. And you're still making space for her, just at a different time. You're not compromising that self-care for yourself. Yeah. I love a hot cup of chai tea and a bath with Epsom salts. It's like my favorite. I love it. I definitely don't do that in between sessions, though. Well, if there's, a big gap. But what's been helpful for me, definitely the routine and not packing so much into a day, connecting with my family, and definitely doing the fun thing. We've been doing like bike rides here recently, and I love in between sessions I'll actually like run out in the backyard, like literally run, like and just pick up some leaves or some dirt or something like that, and just listen to the birds and connect with nature. Been reading a lot about like nature-based play therapy, and then playing with my dog too. I love just playing with the dog and just kind of connecting. And then when I go back, I'm in a different space. So I've been trying to, and I actually got that from a conversation from you, like the importance of whether we're online or it's an in-person, in the office setting, of creating a space, like actually scheduling a space in between your sessions so that you can release and just reset before the next one. And that's been so helpful for me. Also, some of this is going to sound a little bit basic, but I know some people, like when schedules change, they kind of get really off the routine. So taking a shower every morning, even though I may be home most of the day, and I'll be like, I can wait till night. But when I start off with the shower and have a cup of tea and kind of go through the same little routine in the morning, I'm like in a different state to where I can focus. And
Absolutely.
I love to have like so with the play therapy, there's all kinds of toys involved and stuff, and it can get kind of cluttered and discombobulated. Every morning when I start off, if I'm working from home, I love to organize it just so it gives me that, like, okay, it's nice and clean, and we're going to starting off fresh. So those are the things that's helping me: taking a shower, and remembering to eat lunch, because I think sometimes when we're home all day, it can be easy to forget just basic things.
Absolutely. I'll add in with what you just said. So my two things are make my bed, which is interesting because I wasn't a bed maker before this. But the act of making my bed has become part of a ritual, and it feels like I'm preparing for something that shifts my energy into, I'm not just waking up. So not every day feels like a Saturday morning, okay, it's a different day. And then the other one is actually getting dressed.
Yes.
Like actually getting out of my sweatpants.
Yes.
But actually, giving myself permission to get dressed has been helpful. As we say in synergetic play therapy, you're the most important toy in the playroom. And that is still true, even if it's through teletherapy. So take care of yourselves. You're really important. And I think Jackie and I both come together to say thank you so much for what you're doing right now, and for all the people that you're helping, and for being on the front line, and for dedicating yourself to helping children and families around the world. So you deserve self-care and self-love, and hopefully this has offered you some ideas to help you out with that.
Bye now.
Bye.